Soft point magnums, 357 Magnum versus 327 Federal Magnum. I'm going to test these through snub nose revolvers. So our 357 Magnum is a 158 grain jacketed soft point, classic 357 Magnum. And our 327 Federal Magnum is a 100 grain jacketed soft point. I've been wanting to test this round for like 6 years, and this is the first time I've been able to acquire it. So I'm really curious to what we're going to see with this test. So I'm going to use my snub nose revolvers for this test. I'm going to use my 2-inch barrel Taurus 605 to test the 357 Magnum, and my 1.875-inch Ruger LCR in 327 to test the 327 Federal Magnum. Our 357 Magnum is rated at 1240 feet per second, and our 327 Federal Magnum is rated at 1500 feet per second. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So we're going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are for, possible mushrooming and penetration. Then I'm going to move on to a real world simulation where I'm going to have 4 layers of denim on this first 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard right here to represent hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and then another 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard at the back to represent hitting back ribs. Clear ballistics is roughly a half representation of the density of flesh, so 3 inches and 16 inches is more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches in an actual living target. So we're really trying to simulate a 9.5-inch target with ribs. So we'll do a plain clear ballistics shot and then a real world simulation shot, and then I am going to shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, I'm about 5 yards from the target. First up, we have our 357 Magnum 158 grain jacketed soft point, rated at 1240 feet per second. I believe that's through a 4-inch barrel. And the 327's rated at 1500. I believe that is also through a 4-inch barrel. So let's see how close I get to 1240 feet per second in a little 2-inch barrel here. 1093. 1080, 1069, 1054, 1031. So we lose, a couple hundred feet per second going down to a barrel length that short. 327 Federal, I've never fired these before. 100 grain, we are rated at 1500 feet per second. Let's see what I get in my little LCR here. 1272, 1351, 1286, 1325, 1356. Let me do one more here. 1245. Yeah, very inconsistent velocity, but quite a bit faster than the 357 Magnum, and quite a bit less felt recoil. This was actually doable for shooting somewhat comfortably, as where the 357 Magnum is just brutal to shoot for recoil. So let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these compare. All right, our plain clear ballistics shot our best potential. No rib simulation to slow down its potential for penetration. No denim there, which can sometimes affect a bullet's ability to expand if it's a hollow point, possibly even if it's a soft point. But I'm not really sure what to expect with these, to be honest. So I did put up a blanket backstop because these could go all the way through these blocks here. So 357 Magnum, our best potential shot. Let's see what this does. All right. And our 327 Federal Magnum soft point. Let's go take a look. So these both went through 35 inches of gel. I was not expecting to see that. Honestly wasn't. 357 Magnum hit that blanket and stopped. Also, our 327 did the same thing. So those had a lot of penetration. Very, very interesting there. So 35 inch plus on both of those. So let's put in our rib simulations and see how these compare in our real world simulation. All right, our real world simulation, 4 layers of denim, followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics to represent a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and then another 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting back ribs. I've used that back rib simulation, that same piece, for probably 5 or 6 tests. Most I've had happen is bullets hit the back of that, so I feel like it's not going to be so lucky this time because these were high penetrating. Let's see what we get here with our 357 Magnum real world simulation. All right. Let's hit that with our 327 Federal Magnum. We'll take a look. All right, so none of these paths intersected. I did aim significantly different places with these, and I was just able to not land them. I'm aiming down here with the 357, up here with the 327. For whatever reason, they just shrunk close together, but they did not intersect. So these are still valid. And looking at our 357 Magnum, went straight through. Our 327 does look like it started to tumble already. And then we went through our rear rib simulation here with both of these. And here's the thing though, they went in very, very similar spots. Very, very similar. However, I'm not going to shoot them again because even though this broke through and then this broke through right next to it, what I'm seeing here looks right. Because if you have a cartridge with a little more momentum like that 357, it's going to punch a little bit deeper, and that's exactly what it did. So take it or leave it. You might get mad at me for not shooting it again, but I think we would get basically the same results. And what we got with our 357 Magnum is 22.5 inches through 2 rib simulations. Our 327 got 21 inches through 2 rib simulations. So honestly, I thought I was going to see something way different than what I'm seeing. I kind of thought that I was going to see what I see with the 357 Magnum. However, I for sure thought the 327 Federal Magnum would perform differently. Looking at the bullet, it honestly looks like they took their 85 grain jacket of hollow point and filled in the nose with more lead to make it 100 grains. I've seen 10mm rounds kind of built that way, and that's kind of what I thought they were doing here. But if that were the case, at this velocity, we should have seen some form of expansion and mushrooming, and I really don't see any of that. So these held together quite solid. So what I'm going to say is these would be a fantastic, like, dangerous game protection rounds, because these are actually penetrating deeper than I believe what I saw with one of these recent rounds I tested that are meant for, I think it's Hornady's backcountry defense. I think that had less penetration than this, and cartridges like 10mm and I think 357 Magnum. So your basic old soft points are pretty good for what they are. They do create a ton of penetration. I'm not really seeing where, you know, a soft point mushrooms out though by hitting ribs, because I'm hitting a couple rib simulations and I'm not seeing that happening. So they are still pretty hard bullets overall. So let's pull these out of block. I'll take a close-up look at them. Then I'm going to shoot our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel, our 357 Magnum and our 327 Federal Magnum. So not a huge change to that 357 Magnum, just zipped through all of that gel pretty easily. No real mushrooming or deforming there. Same thing with our 327 Federal Magnum. Not really a whole lot going on with that. Now going through our rib simulation, things definitely changed up with our 357 Magnum, because we definitely got some mushrooming and deforming. With our 327, I don't really see any change at all. So our 357 Magnum, quite a bit of nose flattening and deformation compared to how it looked going through plain gel. As we're with our 327 right here going through the MDF denim, I don't really see much change going on there with that. So I would say probably, you know, our 357 would be a little bit better, just a little bit better for dangerous animals or for hunting than the 327. But is the juice worth the squeeze? Double the recoil to get maybe 10% better? I don't know. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 14 yards from the target. I'm gonna pull these up, get a front sight picture, pop these off as fast as I think I can hit the target with these. And the 327 Federal Magnum was created specifically to have a cartridge that has similar power to 357 Magnum, but a lot less recoil while also adding an extra round of capacity. So we'll see if that rings true. I will say though that this felt like pretty brutal recoil and a lot of debris coming out from unburnt powder, so much so that I felt like I was flinching a little bit. So I'm gonna have to wrap my thumb around the back here so I don't get burned. But let's say I get with our 357 Magnum 14 yards. I'm shooting a little bit to the right, I don't know why, and I completely missed one. It is hard to get that back down on target. 327 Federal, let's see what this does for me. It does jump a little bit. You can see me kind of like, you know, it jumps out of my hand a little bit, but it's very easy to get it back down on target. It's kind of similar to shooting maybe like a 40 Smith & Wesson out of a subcompact pistol. And a lot of people are going to think that's brutal. And the people that think that should not ever try to shoot one of these, because this is like 2.5 times that, it seems like. A lot of recoil. So let me back it up and shoot a little bit slower. These should do a little bit better with time to aim. And I'll see how they shoot from a little more distance. All right, 40 yards from the target. So I'm just going to fire really slow and see if I can make some hits from 40 yards. This is about the max distance I think really anybody would want to know how snub-nosed calibers will shoot. But let's see what I can do here. 357 Magnum. Let's see what this will do for me. I don't know how I missed that first one. Aiming in the same spot as the second shot. Huh. Yeah, so I think these are shooting kind of high for me at that distance. Alright, so those last 5 shots I was aiming at the very base of that target, like where it cuts off at the bottom. That's where my sights were, and that's where those were hitting. So a little bit different point of impact from where I'm aiming with those. 327 Federal, let's see what this does. Alright, not too bad overall. Hard for me to tell exactly where I'm hitting, but I think it is a little bit closer to the point of aim with these, and a lot less recoil. Keep going. All right, so very easy to judge this ammo based on what I'm seeing here. So looking at this soft point ammo here, what I'm seeing here is it seems like this, the 327 in a snub, seems like it's giving me about 90% of the terminal performance that the 357 Magnum is giving, but I'm going to say half the recoil. And this gun is actually 3 ounces lighter than this 357 Magnum, so at a lighter gun, I feel half the recoil. So honestly, when you look at why they created the 327 Federal Magnum, I think they did a fantastic job with the idea, because it is delivering pretty much what their claims are. Because when you put it in a soft point and it's penetrating pretty much the same as that 357 Magnum, but you're doing it with half the recoil, I mean, that's a big deal. Because what I can say is that 357 Magnum, I shoot revolvers all the time. I shoot heavy recoiling revolvers all the time. And even for me, that was uncomfortable, made me flinch, just didn't feel right. And the point of impact, that's not just me flinching. They were all hitting high, probably from getting enough muzzle jump like this before the cartridge leaves, and then it's just shooting high. And you see that, especially when you go with heavy bullets. Like when I would shoot 200 grain Super Polices from this, they would hit like a foot high at 10 yards. And you see a little bit of that effect, the heavier and heavier bullet you go, because it jumps that muzzle. And if you're moving real slow while it's jumping that muzzle, it's going to jump it over the target. As with a 327, it's moving faster and it has less muzzle rise. So it's hitting right where I want. It's doing the terminal damage that a 357 Magnum is, kind of, sort of. And it has half the recoil. So honestly, this 327 Federal is just a fantastic cartridge overall. And even though these did different than what I thought they were going to do, I thought we would see more mushrooming of the bullets and less penetration, I could see definitely a good purpose for this 327 Federal Magnum. If I had to like have something for pretty big game for protection, I would rather have this 327, because 6 shots of that I can easily land versus 5 shots that might be 10% more effective that I'm going to flinch on. Yeah, forget that. So very interesting. That's what you get today. I'm very surprised. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.